How's it going, folks? I'm Matthew. This is Lemora's Cards, and today I'm doing a little bit of a, I guess, state of the format type video where I wanted to go over some just kind of interesting deck lists that I'd seen doing well this past weekend, and just generally talking about what kind of stuff is popping up recently, kind of seeing weirder decks do well, stuff you don't see as much of, on top of like more Timna decks than, you ever really want to look at. I figured this could be a place where I kind of do like abbreviated, hey, look at these decks that did kind of well, and instead of like a full breakdown of multiple tournaments, just kind of looking through, showing off the top 16, clicking on some decks, going over some cards from them, as well as talking about a general, like I said, state of the format of what I think is happening. Did we really open up? Because it kind of feels like we have. And also talking about some players' perspectives on it. I know some players who I kind of butted heads with before, who were so determined the format was going to be great, actually end up kind of hating it now. And for the most part, I kind of like where the format is at. And we're just going to talk generally about my thoughts on it, decks that are doing well, highlight some cool stuff that's happening, highlight some potential issues, and just kind of talk through it in a little bit more of a chill, less focused video, but just going over cool decks you might want to take a look at and some thoughts on the format. If you enjoy this video, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know down below what you think of the current state of cEDH. I, for the most part, am pretty happy. The way that I like to play feels pretty rewarded. I haven't experienced as much of the tournament rounds not being able to have a winner. I do have a little bit of it, and I know that there's been a cost to it. And I will probably talk about some of the experimenting people have been doing to get around that recently as well, where we've been seeing top deck like implement the Japanese elo point system. I kind of ended up being sort of neutral on it. I just want people to be able to experiment with it and see what works for them. But it was cool to see like a cEDH tournament where round one has no draws in it versus the 30 to 50% of rounds ending in a draw, which is absolutely insane. If you want to play cEDH and win some big prizes, check out Cradle to the Guild. This cEDH tournament will have up to 204 players competing for a beautiful foil Gaia's Cradle with other major reserve list hits like Mox Diamond, LED, and Grim Monolith in the prize pool as well. Happening May 31st in Phoenix, Arizona, featuring raffle prizes and an event playmat by Gold Sabertooth, who will also be in attendance, which are available in limited numbers or you could get for top 16ing. cEDH tournaments are always a great time, and the Arizona cEDH scene is one of the wildest and most passionate, so don't miss it. Get your ticket now and find out more at the link in the description below. So in terms of the state of the format, let's do like a little bit of a sneak peek at the metagame breakdown. So what we normally do when we do this is we take a look at the last 3 months, tournaments with 60 plus players, and we can see Tymna Thrasios is the most popular deck with 215 entries, Kinnan at 200, TNK actually at 198. So these all very close. I would definitely say these are in the same tier in terms of popularity. They're within like 20 decks different. Not looking at just success right now, just popularity. Then we see Sisay is a pretty big drop from 198 to 108, 90 less players. And then we have Magda closer to that 100 range. After that, the ROG decks and Tivit closer to the 70s. And then you get into your 60s and 50s really quickly. You drop down into 40s, 30s, 20s, and then, that's it. If you get rid of the filters, you can see all the things people play. You can keep scrolling forever. We are a little top heavy in terms of popularity, but looking at results, we can see, I think right now, purely based on results, not me trying to rate things based on where I think they are in terms of power level and where I would put them and if I was making a tier list. Purely just on raw results, Tymna Kraum is in a tier by itself at 27% conversion rate. The other two most popular decks, 10% less, and just about everything else is 10 or more percent worse. Or we start getting into like significantly lower entries where, maybe Stella Lee is, close to as good as TNK, but the numbers aren't really enforcing it as much. Like it's doing worse and it's way less popular. You have decks like Marnius doing really well, but again, once we get to the lower entries, it starts to become a little bit iffier where like a couple good results start to really sway what the numbers look like. Whereas especially in those top 3 decks that are closer to 200, that's a pretty good, in terms of the size of our format, pretty good sample size. And we see TNK is just absolutely running away with the format. And even some decks that historically did really well, like Magda not doing very well. Rock Thras is okay. Rog Size about the same point. Tivit, which was doing, I think, the best of almost any deck, has had a pretty big drop off. I think it's been maybe a little targeted. We see Hashiton is not really living up to the hype so far. Just to say that we still are seeing very top heavy decks that are a ton of entries and a lot of the top cuts. I mean, TNK being 55. I mean, you have to combine, Sisay plus Magda plus Rogthras plus Rogsai is that many top cuts. That's a lot for Tim Necrom. There is a lot of this deck right now, and that's been a lot of the tournaments that I look at will be like 4 pretty cool decks and then 6 Tim Necroms. So it's like, do I want to do a top 16 breakdown? Not especially when it looks like that. They're not the most exciting. I don't really feel great about skimming through them. I try, I've done this before. Just kind of get through the T and Ks, point out the differences, move along, but it doesn't feel great. It's just something that I do for my own sanity, basically. So I do think when we're going to get into it, some of the experimenting that we've had, especially the resurgence of green decks and kind of stranger strategies, is pretty cool. But I do want to point out that there's like a big elephant in the room that is the deck that was previously the best deck and has been for a long time is arguably the best it's ever been right now. And instead of like 3 or 4 other decks being close, I mean, based on this past quarter, at least nothing is, I wouldn't say anything is close. But yeah, Tim Necrom doing exceptionally well. But let's take a look at a couple of these tournaments and some of these lists I want to point out. So I usually look at events with 60 plus players. You can sort, I really wish there was a way to filter like 40 plus players or something like that. So I'm not skimming through tournaments with 8 players. You got 2 pods. It's a little bit tough to call it a tournament, but whatever. But we saw this past weekend for major-ish events. A Rogsai win, a Yusri win. I think that's the name of this thing, right? Yusri? A Yusri win and a Esika win. And not the Esika list that I've talked about before. So our Rogsai list is pretty standard. Roger Dodger. They even gave a little bit of notes. They mentioned they're running stock up over Wheel of Misfortune, that they like to double surveil in, and that Necrodom is garbage, but they don't know what else to play, basically. And that kind of stuck out to me because this deck and the Yusri deck both played stock up. I think it's a lot better in these kind of decks that are looking for payoffs, like getting to go 5. Like dig through time is a little rough on your graveyard for a breach list. So having something kind of similar and is very likely to find you gas because it gives you so many looks at the top might actually kind of be the truth. It might be really good. I've been playing Impulse Effects and Rogthras to pretty good success. They're a little bit different because they come on a body, but this giving you, look at 5 cards, get 2 of them instead of getting the body and getting 1 of them. Only on the Last Chance, no Warrior's Oath is on Into the Floodmaw as a way to get rid of stuff. We're on the Rawlik, other things that kind of stand out. We're on the Swan Song, both Red Blast. Running some of the reactive stuff some decks have cut on the One Ring. 24 lands, including Mount Doom and the Double Surveil land with Rocket City Undercity Sewers. So not a lot to report on this one, but it is kind of cool to be seeing stock up, which has been kind of crazy in almost every format. Maybe doing some stuff in cEDH as well. And then Yusri, this is a deck list I believe I've covered before, or at least a commander that I've covered before. It's 3 mana, Izzet, flying. Whenever it attacks, you choose a number between 1 and 5. You flip that many coins. For each flip you win, draw a card. For each one you lose, you take 2 damage. But if you win all 5 flips, you basically get Omniscience for the turn. You may cast spells from your hand this turn without paying their mana cost. So you kind of speed Yusri into play, I'm guessing, with like Gold Hounds, Skirt Prospectors, Ragavans, get your mana, get it out. Take advantage of extra combats, extra turns, and extra coin flips with like Fear of Missing Out. You're taking a bunch of coin flips, so Tavern Scoundrel is quite nice. Frenetic Free can just flip a whole bunch of coins, get you infinite mana. Frenetic Free and Tavern Scoundrel are functionally quite similar to just winning all the flips with Yusri. In terms of, getting an Omniscience, Yusri is more likely to, if you don't have a payoff in hand, more likely to get you there, but you also don't have to flip 5 coins about it. And we have like Zender Split. It's an interesting like combat focus and also like heavy sorcery, like Izzet Spellslinger. You get the Yusri thing, you take extra turns, especially if you have the like Krark's Thumb, so that we're get a lot more likely to be able to do the thing, especially if you have multiple of that kind of effect or whatever. Getting to flip a whole bunch of coins and get a ton of value, it's pretty sick. And taking the extra turns and extra combats. We've got really cool cards in here like Fiery Gambit, which has you flip coins, and if you win a bunch of them, draw 9 cards and untap all your lands. Just get to go absolutely to the moon. Stitch in Time, just really leaning into what the deck does. I think it's just really cool way to do it, like, and probably less frustrating, I feel like, than like some of the Krark decks can be that are so all in on 1 coin flip, whereas this is just like getting some coins for value. Sometimes you resolve a spell and it doesn't quite go the way you needed it to, but you can also chill on it and wait until you're more developed and can have more control over your coin flips. In terms of win cons, we've got Dualcaster Mage with Molten Dupe, Combat Celebrant, and Rionia, I think, is an infinite. We probably do a FOMO infinite here. Just a really cool list, especially like It's easy to be like, this is a cool fringe one to try, but it has won a tournament. I think at least got one other top 16 that I know of. So it might just be like it's underplayed. And it gets some really weird cards like Planar Chaos too. This is just a really cool list, I think, to try out if you're into this sort of thing. If you kind of like a little bit of the chaos in your list, then pop off. You probably should run snow basics instead of 2 of each basic. That way if you like happen to, because we're on like Flare or Dualcaster Mage. We're not on Flare, but we were on the Dualcaster, right? So like if you want to copy a Tainted Pact, you don't want to have 2 of the same basic. Like it's pretty much just free to run a Tainted Pact mana base. So you probably should do that is one thing I would point out. It basically doesn't change anything. It just makes your deck strictly better as far as I can see. But yeah, another really cool one that I think you could try. And again, we are winning tournaments with stock up. 2 cEDH major wins like immediately. Use the link in the description below to download Whatnot, and you'll get $15 to use to buy Magic singles, sealed product, get anything that you want, really. There's no limits. You just get $15 on the account for free just for signing up. Use the link in the description below. Give Whatnot a try. And then we have Esika winning, but a very different Esika. You immediately notice the Saheeli and the Vivian because they're like 5-color Hulk. So we're doing 34 creatures. We have a bunch of, the staple mana stuff. We've got Magda here, which has just been a thing in regular Esika lately. But then we've got the Rectors, both Arena and Academy, to be able to set up our Vivian on the Hunt, keep Kiki Karmic Guide, Beldar Guardian shenanigans. As well as just a Protean Hulk. And so we can Academy Rector and go grab Pattern of Rebirth, which goes and gets our Protean Hulk. We're doing Birthing Pod. It's like way more of almost like an Abzan plus a Naya, sort of Hulk deck, but they're just using all 5 colors to do it, letting Esika be a good mana dork that also can find you relevant cards. So you're very creature heavy, so you might just get and flip into kind of random stuff, but you do have a lot of very high impact creatures that can just win you the game. We're even on like Tymna into the 99. Tymna, that is Vigilance and a mana dork. Pretty hot. You got Spell Seeker, just like really going kind of against the grain on what this commander can do. I have seen a list too that was Esika where the only creature is Godo, so that you're guaranteed to flip once you bridge into Godo and then get the Helm immediately to win, which is really cool too. But this is just such a wild take on this deck list. Doing Protean Hulk piles, the rest of it is fairly normal looking. Like at least in the sorceries, it's a bunch of tutors. And then reanimate. Instance, there's no Dark Ritual or Cabal Ritual. We've got Spell Pierce, kind of leaning into just like whatever we need to protect our stuff. Assassin's Trophy, Abrupt Decay to deal with, I'm guessing, mostly, hate pieces, mainly being Opposition Agent, I guess, that stops a lot of our lines. Bovine Intervention, destroy target artifact or creature, and then they make a 2/2. The interaction package just reminds me way more of like a Sisay list. And then our fast mana, Ring, Wishclaw, Birthing Pod, also the Pattern of Rebirth and Survival of the Fittest to set up our lines. And then we're on 28 lands. We are Gaia's Cradle deck because we're very creature heavy. Phyrexian Tower helps us accelerate and then also crack our Protean Hulk or whatever it might be. Just a really cool approach to a commander that is kind of mostly established. It's like there's a couple different Esika archetypes where there was Oops All Spells versions of it, which were a little bit better before the bans. The kind of turbo bot precon version, and then Secret Commander Godo, and now Secret Commander Protean Hulk. Really cool stuff among our winning deck lists. So looking at like the top 16 for the Goodbyes of Forever, we had the Rogsai, Sicily, and Othalim, which is 11 and Mike, I think, which is a 5-color option, not the most popular. We might take a look at that one. We've got Kinnan, Sisay, Rocco, 1 TNK here, another Sisay. Pretty good spread. Stella Lee, Frank Thras, Winota, pretty cool. The new NIv-Mizzet Visionary popping up here. Rakdos the Muscle. So yeah, a couple Kinnans, a TNK, a couple Sisay. So some of your staple stuff, but then other kind of takes and decks that like you expect to pop up every now and then, but not all the time. But we do see like NIv-Mizzet and Winota making an appearance here, which is pretty cool. But yeah, we got Walmart Blue Farm, which is our Mike and 11. Kind of 5-color good stuffy looking at the creature package. So Mike is 1 Selesnya for 2 tap. Choose target creature card in your graveyard that was put there from the battlefield this turn. Turn to the battlefield tapped. Kind of one you might expect is like your thing gets Bowmastered. You can just bring it back, especially if they Bowmaster your Bowmasters. Got you, nerd. I think the main thing is if it doesn't get Bowmastered, a lot of times stuff doesn't get killed. It either gets exiled or bounced. So how much value we might get out of Mike other than crack my Ranger Captain, return my Ranger Captain? It's a little unsure. And 11 is when your maximum hand size is 11, which is actually probably relevant in a very Ristic Study format. Whenever it attacks, you draw a card and lose 1 life. Then if you have 11 or more cards in your hand, you may cast an instant or sorcery from your hand without paying its mana cost. So you see, just generic-ish good stuff in our creatures, kind of focusing on like 2 mana engines with Fairy Mastermind, Archivist, and Polywog, less of like the dork focus. So it is more Sands green and its creature base. And then we do have really big spells to take advantage of 11. So we've got generic good stuff, assuming we're on Breach, which means right. We got Emergent Ultimatum, Peer into the Abyss, Expropriate, and Enter the Infinite to take advantage of 11. How often you get to do all that, I don't really know. But if you do get to do it, it's really sick. Especially Emergent Ultimatum is just find these other 3 cards and then let your opponents choose which way they want to lose. Your instants, it's a lot of 5-color stuff you would expect. They're not doing any giant cards here because it's instant art sorcery on 11, right? They're not doing a giant instant, just all good stuff. I think this lets you, you're going to have some cost in your opening hands, but sometimes you'll just put an Emergent Ultimatum under Chrome Mox. That's fine. Or, pitch 3 of these you can pitch to force. Having some selection of them, I think is cool to have a payoff for just drawing a whole bunch of cards. It's just built into the zone. People are probably not going to expect, to get hit with the Expropriate or whatever, but, they might not know if you're just all 5-color good stuff or not, and the rest of the deck tells that story. And then we just have 5-color Breach stuff. Other than that, right, we got the LED, Fast Mana, Wish Call, we're on the One Ring. Enchantments we are on the Carpet. Necro is really nice with 11. It's both going to help fuel you up to that 11, as well as just give you more cards and more selection. That's pretty sick. Even on the Sylvan Library too, which if we're trying to get up to 11, does get us an extra 2. That's fine. 27 lands. We are on the Beseiju. We have another Otawara Cutter. We've been talking about this recently. That's kind of been a metagame shift, as Otawara is just not all that great if it's not hitting your own thing. It is pretty nice to have that channel interaction, but especially a lot of decks, if you can't do it for like 2 mana, like a Rogthras does, like the rate just feels so bad if you're straight up channeling it for 4. And the effect on Beseiju is just so much more impactful, as well as the rate. Beseiju is just kind of broken. But yeah, this is a cool list too. I wanted to point out because it is 5-color good stuffy, but with a nice twist on it. This NIv-Mizzet was something that we saw a little bit of hype about when it was first shown, and not really a lot of results out of it. But it's 4 blue-red, certainly more castable than the main NIv-Mizzet we're used to seeing. No maximum hand size, which is sick. Whenever a source you control deals non-combat damage to an opponent, you draw that many cards. So whenever you ping them, you draw a card. So we got some pingers. We got Coruscation Mage, Erebor Flamesmith. Pretty much if you don't know what the card does, I'm going to assume that it pings. A Firebrand Archer, Kessler Flamebreather, a lot of Ob Nixilis kind of cards. Thermal Alchemist is pretty cool too. It gets untapped. Treasonous Ogre to help get us a bunch of mana, get the stuff going. We're on the Archmage Emeritus and the Stormkill Artist, taking advantage of, casting lots of spells. I'm assuming we're very Is It Spill Slingery. 12 sorceries and 27 instants. We got to be a Grape Shot deck, right? We are. Bolt Wave even. 1 mana. That's Ancestral Recall. 1 mana draw 3. This is like the best Lightning Bolt deck. In the Festivities, which I think is probably just good, to be honest. That's probably just a good Magic card in cEDH right now with what a lot of people are playing. Tonic Hazard is really similar. Is that a functional reprint? Deal 1 damage to each opponent, each creature, Planeswalker control. Doesn't hit Planeswalkers. Okay, it's basically the same. Inner Fire. Add red to your mana pool for each card in your hand. I did not know this existed. No Wheel. We're on the Twister. So are we breaching? We're on Brain Freeze. So I'm guessing, yeah, we are breaching. Twister over Wheel is interesting. Some people just like not fueling other people's breaches. Price of Progress. Price of Progress. Draw like 12, bro. That's going to be crazy. We're running Stifle. I'm always interested when I see Stifles and people not on trick buying, which I know Stifle is cheaper and you just hold up a blue. But it just feels like if it can be interacted with, then you might as well just have run another counterspell instead, but maybe it's just good anyways. And they got the red rituals like Desperate and Pyretic. Seething Song 2 helping us get this commander out. I think this is just really cool. Curiosity, Amphibian Downpour, which I think is great. We're on 29 lands. I think a lot of these cards that they're running that are kind of goofy looking, Bolt Wave is kind of just bad. But that is draw 9. That's pretty dang good. But a lot of this stuff like in the Festivities and Grape Shot, these are just cards that can really help you control the boards right now, especially in very dork heavy pods. And kind of like we've seen, is that really the stuff you need to worry about? Arguably no. If the card isn't good into the Timnacron matchup, you probably should prioritize that, which some of the stuff can do anyways, right? Like if you do in the Festivities with your, with a Grape Shot, you're very likely to just wipe out the Timna plan entirely. Then you have a bunch of counterspells for the rest of what they're doing. How it lines up against a lot of decks, I don't know, but it looks really sick. It's kind of similar to like Ob Nixilis, but you get to run blue, which is, always great. Really helps out with what you're doing. So yeah, I think this could be another really cool option to try out. Referenced off Comedian. I'm not going to go over Winota super in depth because there's a million creatures, but I do want to point out this is a deck I think people should probably start to reevaluate because we're in a pretty different position where mid-range is really heavy. You can prioritize pieces like Linvala and other things that like stop the sort of creature focus stuff, as well as, you know, run things that deal with graveyards and make it really hard to breach or Thoracle for the Timnachrom decks. And they're just getting so many options. Like I know in Tarkir, there's a lot of stuff that people are looking at. Winota, I think, is a deck that, you know, was a menace, became a meme. I think it might be somewhere in the middle now. So it might be a deck you want to evaluate or reevaluate. I think there's probably enough pieces there for someone to really go in and just retool the deck list, kind of start from the ground up, decide what you really need, what you don't, and then try to just address the metagame as they, you know, need to. Especially the more stacks you lean, the more you have to start addressing what, you know, what the metagame is, what you really need to answer. Oh, they got a Johnny in there too. That's kind of cool. All right, I just think Winota is probably in the spot where it could be an option right now that's reasonable. You are going to get really heavily respected. You got to, you know, deal with that. But I think it could be a real deck again. It just, I don't think you can just run it and just hope to overwhelm people. You probably have to be very political and, you know, really on top of what you choose to deploy for stacks pieces and try not to, you know, throw the game. Like there's a lot of difficulty in potentially running it. But I think if someone's willing to put in the work, I expect Winota could be pretty reasonable deck. Looking at this European, I'm guessing, event, 84 players. We've got Omnath, Crick, TNK, some Kinnan, TNK. Yeah, you see why I get annoyed. Katilda, which really stands out to me. The Derevi, Sisse, another Stellar Lead. Tiamat, which is also pretty cool. I also want to point out Yusri here got 4 wins and 3 draws. They didn't just slide into, you know, the top 4 pod. They just like went undefeated the whole day, crushed everybody. That's super sick. Tiamat, I'm sure people are excited about. It is cool, but there aren't really many dragons. In fact, there's one. But just the pure aura of revealing your commander start a game and it's Tiamat, I think is sick. And I think this deck list is smart. So Tiamat is 2 and then 1 of every color. When it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, search your library for up to 5 dragons not named Tiamat that have different names, reveal them, put it in your hand. Historically, what you would do with Tiamat is use Dream Halls to cast Tiamat for whatever, pitching any single card in your hand that has a color, cast Tiamat, and then you would assemble a pile of your dragons that could, you know, assemble to win and cast each other through Dream Halls. The card quality is pretty low. There's like some weird things that would come up. Dream Halls is a very spooky card, but this deck list goes around that and just decides to use Tiamat as a food chain outlet. So you just have, for your creature package, just 5 color good stuff. Really, the only thing that stands out is a green-red focus, as well as, I guess, the Vexing Shusher. Like, just turbo mana, like Orcish Lumberjack, Tinderwall, and, you know, this all pointing you very Gruul. Vexing Shusher for protection. And then Squee the Immortal to cast the food chain over and over. And then Terror of the Peaks, which is our outlet, which is 5 mana, spells to target it, costs a dish for 3 life. But the main text is, whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, Terror of the Peak deals damage equal to that creature's power to any target. So you can Squee, get infinite mana for creatures, cast Tiamat, go get Terror of the Peaks, and then just keep the food chain loop going and kill everybody with Terror of the Peaks, which I think is just awesome. Could be cool to run another dragon that gets you, you know, some backup for this, but I guess if you assemble the food chain thing, you're good anyways. Food chain does have its own issues where having to do it through heuristic study is pretty tough. The Terror of the Peaks itself isn't protected. If you're not doing this instant speed, it's hard to protect it. So there are downsides. I do think food chain is still very fragile, but this is trying to do it really quickly, and it's again in a good stuff 5 color shell. Kind of sticking out is no Ranger Captain. We've talked about this too, where I think some decks are just opting to not dedicate too many slots to like double white pip cards. You see this deck is very red green. As we scroll down, we're going to see a lot more of a red focus because we're trying to turbo out Squee, basically. Squee plus food chain. See, we're on the Rite of Flame, which is pretty good anyways. Ponder kind of sticking out, and Last Chance as an extra turn effect. So kind of let you know we're doing that, and Final Fortune. We got the Savine's right because we're 5 color. We got Summoner's Pact. Gets what? SSG, Vexing Shusher, Tinderwall, Cutzel. We're on Entomb, which will get us our Squee also, right? Because Squee is from Graveyard or Exile. We're on the Crop Rotation. Dispel, Into the Flood Maw, Path to Exile, over Swords to Plowshares, which we've talked about kind of being an option. We're on the Abrupt Decay 2. I guess our combo being stopped by Oppo is potentially relevant. Usually when I see Abrupt Decay, I'm thinking like, all right, what Oppo you're trying to kill, or how control-y is your deck? And if you're not like Golgari, Focus, control-y, or just like, oh, I don't have blue spells, you usually don't opt for Abrupt Decay, so it usually means there's like a specific thing you want to answer. We got the Borin, Brain Freeze. And like I mentioned, kind of a focus on netting red mana with Desperate Ritual, Pyretic Ritual. So our combo is, you know, double red pip, and then potentially like get the Squee out, take an extra turn, get the food chain out, I'm guessing. Common line, we got the Intuition to set all of that up too. Being able to go Intuition for Savine's Wreck, Squee, and food chain as another backup to the Breach line is really sick. I've just been excited about these deck lists. These are just cool. We are a NOS deck too, by the way, which you could not do in old school Tiamat. Artifacts, fast mana. We got the LED Wish Claude, no One Ring. We're just zooming here. And then we've got Carpet, you know, gets us the mana, draw engines, Necropotence, and the food chain, baby. 26 lands. We are in Forbidden Orchard. I do think Steam Vents is a really weird duel to be running. Are we not on Volk? Maybe that's there's no Volk Island, so that must be a budget constraint. So also some budget constraints here too. Might have been a non-proxy event. I think this list is just so cool. I think revealing Tiamat as your commander is just sick. And again, kind of similar to Winota, I don't want to go over every card in this deck because there's 57 creatures, which should tell you a lot. But we got Katilda as a commander, a tournament stacks deck that tries to impact artifact acceleration in the early game while building a mana advantage with creatures and wants to either combo in the mid game or lock opponents out. Stacksy. Katilda, green-white 1/1, protection from werewolves. I did not realize this thing is a 1/1. This thing gets bowmastered. Human creatures you control have tap, add 1 mana of any of this creature's colors, and then you can spend 4 green, white, and tap it to put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Turn our dudes into dorks, right? Our Esper Sentinel and our Magus of the Candelabra and our devoted caretaker. I guess this thing's a human. It's got dragon ears. Planar guide. 3 and a white. Remove it from the game. Remove all creatures from the game. At the end of the turn, return those cards. Okay, I've never seen this before. Returning these into dorks. As well as being able to pump it. That's like a win con you would have seen historically in like green-white decks like Tiamat would use. And the like Temna Kodama, that kind of stuff where they just start using the land also that this is referencing. That stuff that sticks out. Recruitment Officer, 4 mana, look at the top 4 cards of your library, reveal a creature 3 less, put it in your hand. Weathered Wayfarer is a card we talked about a lot, especially in the Japanese list. Seed Cradle Witch, pump a creature, untap that creature, so that could probably go infinite. We're a Hermit Druid Tech 2 while we're at it, I guess. Thalia, Voice of Victory, which is not in here yet, but is a change that they made, I guess, for their next event. It's gonna be legal soon. Putting counters on, like just so many, just millions of creatures, basically. We got the Bright Glass Gear Hulk, Sowing Micah Spawn, Chancellor of the Annex, Elishtorn, Emrakul. We're just working our way up the curve. We're just, this is a real trade binder of a deck right here, but I love it. I love just all this stuff. What's really interesting too is there's not many tutors for creatures. You've got Finale, Worldly Tutor, Eladamri's Call, Port of Calling, Collected Company even, which I guess we might have enough hit 50. Like Collected Company numbers are actually kind of hard to make the card good. Might just be worth it here. Angel of Glory's Rise. Like, this is just crazy. It's just an insane deck list. Not a lot of artifact mana because we have Lotus Petal and Null Rod. And I think the logic here is that like Soul Ring and stuff like that doesn't help us cast our commander. And we want to lead on like turn 1 commander or otherwise something with pips in it and for the early cost. Concordant Crossroads. This is another kind of theme I saw of lists this past weekend is running this. God, I wish somebody was brave enough to run this card against me. Deafening Silence, Root Maze, slowing down artifacts and lands, Stony Silence. So I will point out one thing. We've seen like a drop in Oof decks because Oof and Null Rod, whatever style decks, were just a little fringe archetype that you could run because the entire format was built around Dockside, Mana, and Dockside specifically, but Mana Crypt, Jeweled Lotus also being major parts of turbo decks, or just fast starts from decks. So these effects have gotten worse. There are still decks, again, like the Timnicroms of the world, whose mana development is all tied up in artifacts, and you definitely can slow them down, and it might give you a better matchup against those sound decks. Survival of the Fittest here. Leyline of Abundance, which makes our guys tap for an additional green, and it lines up well with our commander. Then Lurking Predator, 6 mana, opponent casts a spell, reveal a top card if it's a creature, right to the battlefield, baby. Another wild thing, 24 lands. Who needs lands when I'm running 12, 16 1-drops? Who needs a land? We're on the Woodland, Cavern, Lush Portico, Cradle, Yavimaya. Just absolute insanity. Real quick, the Omnath, we have seen these be like Food Chain and other shenanigans. Not doing that, doing like the Vivian, Kiki Pod kind of stuff too with Deceiver, Kiki, Felidar Guardian, Zealous Conscripts, and doing Planebound Accomplice, which is the sneak attack for Planeswalkers, to just throw in a Saheeli or Vivian, which is really sick too. Rocco in the 99. Fire. We're on the Wargate, Tooth and Nail even in here. Now, if you actually have this Crop Rot, you're balling. There's a reason that there's not even a price on here because they don't have normal listings. Maybe you're balling like that. I'm not. Or you just went to Eternal Weekend and won. I don't know. Final Fortune, Return the Favor. Really red leaning with our interaction with redirection and copying stuff. That's interesting. Force of Vigor 2. Maybe they're just blinging like that. Artifacts only the 2. Soul Ring and Birthing Pod. So interesting. I guess if you know you're queuing up into the Katilda matchup, you don't want to get caught needing all your artifacts. Amphibian Downpour popping up. Defense of the Heart. They're blinging it up. Confetti Ristic, Confetti Defense of the Heart, couple grand into a crop rotation. Couldn't be me. You Beautiful deck list. Not going super deep on this. We are doing Spell Seeker. I don't think we're doing the Ephemerate lines, right? No, none of that. But really interesting approach that some players are having to skirt around traditional interaction. And then at Commander Geddon, what did we have here? We got Ghyrson. Maybe we'll take a look at that. Grolnok, Yeva, Thalia. Then we got this monocolor foursome right here of Yeva, Magda, Yawgmoth, Nezahal popping off. And then those 4 colors in the next deck. That's pretty interesting. Yidris here, which has had a little bit of a resurgence. Krark Saka, and then our top 4, which is the Roxai, the Hulk Esika, Glarb, and Najila. Ghyrson here kind of similar, doing the like pinging stuff, deals extra damage. You're gonna see a lot of similar cards to what we saw in NIv-Mizzet, but also cool stuff like Chandra's Incinerator. I was so convinced. I was pretty new to Magic when this came out, or like getting into Magic for real, and I was so convinced that this little cycle of these Chandra cards out of M21, this is like the first previews I think I ever kept up with. I was so convinced they're just gonna be like cracked in half and insane. I was so excited to play with them. More of this kind of, yeah, the end of festivities style stuff. J Will Windfall here, Pyrokinesis, Rafted Exoskeleton, just cards for this commander. Blood Moon, Ristic. I noticed this I'm pretty sure this is a non-proxy tournament because I see things like Windfall over Wheel, not necessarily correct or incorrect, but it's different. And then you scroll down and you notice like a lack of artifacts. So like I haven't seen a Mox Diamond, or in one of them at least. We're the Blue Moon style deck with Blood Moon back to basics, getting people. You know, you're not gonna get greedy with your mana base. Maybe do that thing too. Maybe they just don't want the Mox Diamond. I don't know. Seems pretty good to me. Yawgmoth I'm going to look at, but I'm not going to go over because this is just a whole bunch of combos with just the junkiest creatures you've ever heard of in your life. And it's just counter, Undying, Halo, Hopper, Ozox, like this guy's an Elden Ring boss, I'm pretty sure. Some of these cards are from 1902. Some of them were never printed into real sets. They just made them up just for this deck list. It's just so many different weird things that combo with one aspect of what Yawgmoth does. And if you have like 3 or 4 of them in play, you do a full combo and just kill the table. I do want to highlight that this is just really cool. I like all of this. I like running Gisa and Grief in your cEDH deck and Postmortem Lunge. We got a bunch of reanimate effects, stuff that brings stuff back, like the Malakir Mire, or Malakir Rebirth, Malakir Mire on the back, that brings stuff back after we sack it to Yawgmoth. Songs of the Dam is just so sick. Genesis Chamber, Jet Medem. We got the Winter Moon here too. People really hating on lands in this tournament. They do not want you to be untapping with non-basics. Bastion Remembrance, Blight Mound. We're making pests. That's when a non-token creature dies, you make a pest, so you can bring back one of the things with Undying. That get put a counter. Okay. I see it. Nest of Scarabs. Lots of just the weirdest combo cards. 18 Swamps, Fricket, Lake of the Dead, which I love. Then it's $80. Okay. Didn't know that part. That Urborg is $86. Wow, I'm behind on some of these things. This Yidris is looking kind of like what we'd expect. Nothing but mana out of the creatures. Though we are in the Bowmasters. So like combo-y stuff and then just generically good card like Bowmasters too. Sorceries, we're on the Ancestral Vision, Wheel, and the Profane Tutor for suspend cards. Triple Wheels. We're on Reign of Filth, Manamorphose, Limdol's Vault, Frantic Search, like free card. Gush is pretty cool too, to return 2 islands, and you know, if we get to Cascade off of our commander, you know, potentially get into like a 4-mana spell. It's pretty sick. We got some Moxen and Talismans, an O-Ring on the Song Creation too, which I love. Beseech the Mirror in a Song Creation is just the coolest thing you can do in any format. 28 lands, actually pretty high on the land count. Forbidden Orchard, E-Zone. It is on the Ottawa this time. Undercity Sewers is a Surveil land. So like I mentioned it before, we've been seeing Yidris kind of pop up a little bit more over here. Something to keep in mind if you want to jam. I think this kind of deck can just be really good if you have the, you know, resolve to just say like, I'm going to punish the decks that are mulliganing for turn 2 Smothering Tithe, and I'm just going to try not to give them a turn 2, or fight in a way that's really hard to interact with because I'm 2 for 1ing them off of all my spells. Committing to doing the thing. You got lots of colors to be able to pivot into different game plans. You can get lots of value off of your commander, set up really smart big brain plays. I think Yidris is just so much fun, so cool. Grolnok is a deck we've seen pop in and out. Whenever a frog you control attacks, which he is, you mill 3. When a permanent card is put in your graveyard from your library, you exile with a Croak counter on it, Ribbit. And then you can play lands and cast spells to one card you own exile with Croak counters on them. So you mill a bunch of cards, you can play all of them. He's known for comboing with Hermit Druid, you get access to your whole deck. So we've got bunch of dorks, Cephalid Illusionist, so I guess we're doing the Cephalid Breakfast kind of thing too. Malevolent Hermit, pretty common in these kind of decks. Tribute Mage, what does that get? We'll see. Mana value too. But probably most insanely and hilariously is Rampant Frogantua, which is 2 and a green frog with trample, +10/+10 for each player who has lost the game. And then whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you may mill that many cards, put any land cards from among them onto the battlefield tapped. So mill a ton of, one, it's a frog, so it's going to attack, mill 3, smack somebody, mill another 3, Or if somebody's lost, mill 13 and just absolutely go insane with the ridiculous Grolnok value you can get from there. Sorceries, some tutors, traumatize, which is 5 mana, mill half your deck, and then cut your losses, which is 6 mana with casualty 2, mill half your deck, so you can mill half your deck twice if you casualty it, sacrificing something. Probably will win you the game. That's like a Peer into the Abyss, basically, both of these, if you have Grolnok in play. March of Swirling Mist, you got the Otherworldly Gaze to get stuff into the graveyard. Heal is fire. Memory's Journey, kind of a staple in these sort of decks. Winds of Rebuke, this was a cEDH staple at one point. Bounce something and, you know, get somebody's top deck tutor out of the way. Destroyed. Frantic Search we see popping up here. Force of Will, Intuition, of course, which this is from your library, right? Yeah, so it won't work with Intuition, but you do have lots of cards that do work well with Intuition in this deck list. So our Tribute Mage can get... See, I was thinking you run Trinket Mage for Shuko, but we're not running that. We're running Defense Grid, Lightning Greaves. That's what we want. We want Lightning Greaves. We're trying to get him going. Get an immediate, like, Lightning Greaves, Hermit Druid, and speed up Grolnok. Okay, I guess I could see that. Kind of feels like having a tutor for the Shuko thing could be good, and maybe like Transmute Artifact is just kind of get you there, or some other like artifact tutor that goes and gets multiple things. Also, I just kind of glanced over the Oko that we have. Not super popular right now, but it can be good. Yeah, we got the Shuko to go with Cephalid Illusionist. That'll mill your entire deck. Coordinate Crossroads, again, people are gaming right now. Where are these people in my pods? Seal of Removal, that one's just kind of cool. That makes people think twice. Mystic Subdual, 2 mana flash, enchant creature. Enchant creature loses all abilities. Okay. And Amphibian Downpour. They're ahead, dude. I was just ahead of the time. I told you guys Amphibian Downpour was going to be good. Nobody listened to me. All the YouTube commenters said, blah, blah, blah. Shut up. Now look at me now. Now who's frogging? And it makes them frogs. It's the values to the moon. You frog your own guys. You're getting frogged right now in the chat. 25 lands. Pretty low land counts here. Manamo, Yawgmoth, other regular guys, Cradle. This is another deck that's fire. The format has opened, guys. I was wrong. Again, not going to get into every deck list here. I want to actually release a video that isn't like motion picture length for once. But I do want to just say that right now, as of this recording, I think cEDH is in a pretty interesting place. I will mention that some people do have some issues with how much politicking takes place in games. They are so mid-rangey and so value engine focused. And there's always just this risk of we're all playing and then we're all going to try to win at the end of time in the round. And whoever has the most cards off their engine wins probably. And it's so easy to throw the game by mistiming something or putting too many cards into something, assuming that, you know, it's right for you to go for it now. And it can really weigh down on people. I found that it doesn't bother me too much. I kind of enjoy that when it's not like if I'm not playing tournaments every single week and every game's not like that, then it's cool. I can deal with it. It is a little bit overwhelming for some people. I've seen some people just say that they don't enjoy cEDH right now, especially tournaments. I've seen a lot of those same people say that take this epic losers who needed Dockside. Those were just, you know, Dockside and Mana Crypt were just a crutch for your deck. And now they don't want to play anymore because they don't have a crutch. Or, you know, we don't have the crutches, which were actually just things that let you, progress the game plan towards a win in a reasonable amount of time. So how things will evolve, maybe the Japanese system will clean some things up. Maybe with the unbans we're getting next month, it might change a little bit. I don't expect huge changes, but, you know, I think it's possible we could get Crypt JLo back. Maybe a couple things that are iffier and probably fine in casual as game changers specifically could be fine. You know, Prophet Accrue Fix. You know, you could give that to me. I could be trusted with a Paradox Engine and Rog Thras, I promise. So we could see some shakeups that might help that. I'm not going to expect to see things that change cEDH. I know that it's very unlikely that their changes are focused on that. I think if you try to look through the lens of we're making changes based on the first 3 brackets and how we want those to look, if you look from that lens, I think you're more likely to get a reasonable prediction on things that make sense to go off the list and on the list. So that's something to keep in mind too. Let me know down below what you're thinking about cEDH. I'm loving some of these wild deck lists. I would like to see less of Timnachrom. I think if you are making some goofiness, try to target that deck best that you can. Try to avoid using the graveyard. Try to shut off theirs. Rule of Law effects are pretty good against them. They're kind of bad against the Thrasios piles, which is what puts you in an awkward position. It's hard to focus on both of those things. You know, the cursed totems and stuff like that aren't very good against them. But just consider your game plan and what is super successful right now, which is mostly Timnachrom, and then try to target that or target the people who are targeting that. You know, maybe that's the angle that you need to go at, or go underneath them with a turbo deck, you know. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, go play cEDH. Have a good one, everybody.